opportunity to speak to a man that I've been following for quite some time on LinkedIn, somebody who models not good behavior, and sometimes people gravitate towards, how do I model good behavior? I'm more of how do I model great behavior? Somebody who embodies the word leadership, embodies the word service, embodies the word passion, but more importantly, embodies the word empathy. I think it's especially important in this environment when you look at all of the negative stigma that we're faced with today. And I could not be more proud to have Jon Macaskill on the Altered State podcast, a gentleman who is a former commander for the Navy SEALs, but now, I'll let him get into his story, but I think that now he has an opportunity to flip and really redescribe or recreate this whole service component. He's obviously, he served his country, but I think that when you look at how he's serving humanity now, I think it's really important. So with that, thank you so much, Jon, for being a part of the Altered State podcast.
Hey, Tony, thanks for having me, man. It truly is an honor to be here, and I appreciate the discussion that we had right before the show, right before you hit record, and definitely looking forward to sharing my story of how I got to where I am and then what it is that I'm doing now, and hopefully spread the message about the organization that I'm a part of. And if I can't spread the message about the organization, then at least spread the message about the tools that we're sharing, that we're making known to the world. So thanks for having me, Tony.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Jon, let's dive right in. You're obviously a fearless leader. And I think that there is this stigma attached to mindfulness and meditation that sometimes people don't associate the two. Talk to me about your evolution as, a commander for the SEALs, which is just absolutely crazy. And now you're teaching, former vets the power of mindfulness. How did you marry these two?
Yeah, great question. So first off, I'll say I'm certainly not fearless. I have many, many fears. And I think the definition of bravery is being scared, but doing it anyway. And that's where I think I am now, in that a lot of folks, as they get out of the military, they feel a lack of mission and kind of a loss of purpose and a loss of tribe. And I've been blessed in that I've found a new purpose and a new tribe. The new purpose is sharing what I've found through mindfulness and meditation with veterans. And that new tribe is the organization, the nonprofit that I'm a part of, Veterans Path. And that's their mission is to share the life-changing and life-saving practices of mindfulness and meditation with veterans. And when I use the word veterans, I mean those who have hung up the uniform. And then now we're also starting to branch into those who are still wearing the uniform, so those on the active duty side of that transition line. As far as how I got into it, it's definitely not the regular job that a transitioning or a retiring SEAL commander gets into, but I was fortunate enough, if you can say that, to have been introduced to mindfulness and meditation in the SEAL teams. I was unfortunate in that it was not introduced to me early enough. I got introduced to mindfulness and meditation after some private personal battles with depression and anxiety and stress and survivor guilt, and finally had a counselor recommend it to me, and it truly saved my life. I feel quite literally it saved my life. And somewhere around the same time, I was trying to figure out what it was I was going to do after I left the Navy, and the kind of light bulb went off in my head that I could teach what I was starting to learn myself, kind of in the military, in the SEAL teams, in the military writ large. We have a model called train the trainer, where we learn something and then that person who learns it goes and trains somebody else, and then it just trickles down. Well, I'm hoping to be one of those trainers who was trained, and now I can train many more in these practices that, again, I feel saved my life. So that's really why I'm doing it. It's that service, that a lot of that desire to serve that a lot of us have in the military anyway, it's just transitioned into a new position, just with Veterans Path instead of with the Navy, and as their deputy executive director instead of as a Navy SEAL commander.
So great. And so when you have, let's say, a veteran come into Veterans Path, do they have at least a phase one or an elementary level kind of experience with mindfulness, and then you take them and elevate that to, level 2 and 3? Or are there some people like myself who have tried 15 times and they still can't figure it out? Guys like me, I'm wired to go one speed. It's either sleeping or 100. I recognize that I need the mindfulness. Are there guys like me that you've seen progress and you've seen them evolve as a result of the mindfulness practice?
Yeah, sure have. And we've seen men and women from all walks of life. Some who've, practiced mindfulness and meditation in their own ways in the past, some that have never heard of it, some that actually don't believe in it, some that are like, you know what, I'll give it a shot, but I don't think this is going to work. So from all sides of the spectrum, as far as what it does for you, I mean, I was one of those people, much like you, Tony, in that I was skeptical at first. When that counselor told me that I needed to try mindfulness meditation, I kind of laughed at him and sloughed him off. And then finally I was like, you know what can it hurt? Why not try it? So I tried it for a few minutes. My mind started racing off, and I was like, okay, I'm one of those people who can't meditate because I'm too busy. I got to figure out what the rest of the day holds. I got to figure out how to accomplish all these things that are on my task list. I've got to figure out what to do with my bills, what to do with my family, what to do with, everything, job, everything. So I was like, okay, I'm just one of those people who can't meditate. He convinced me again, hey, try it out. Your mind is going to wander. That's part of what it is. That's that process of identifying that your mind is wandering and then bringing it back to your anchor, whether the anchor is your breath, whether the anchor is your physical sensations, whether the anchor is a mantra of some sort. Just that very, very process of coming back over and over, that is physiologically rewiring your brain to think differently. And it rewires your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain that is responsible for cognitive thought, to be the part of your brain that responds more regularly, as opposed to the amygdala, which is the fight or flight part of your brain, which reacts to stressors. I mean, that was kind of part of our caveman development, is that, hey, if there's a saber-toothed tiger around the corner, we need to have that amygdala very highly developed so that we can either run or fight instantly. And that evolution hasn't kept up with evolution of society. So obviously there's not a caveman, there's not a saber-toothed tiger. We are now much more evolved. The saber-toothed tigers aren't out there. And we are still reacting the same way. We are still reacting somewhat like our cavemen ancestors did, in that, somebody comes to us with a bill, somebody comes to us with a task. We perceive that as a threat because our amygdala perceives it as a threat. And in the mindfulness and meditation that we're able to do, that rewiring of your brain changes the neural pathways to where threats are not perceived as threats anymore. Or rather, things that are not threats are not perceived as threats anymore. We still perceive threats. If somebody comes at us, trying to fight us, with a gun, a knife, we're still going to fight or flight. There's still going to be that natural reaction there. But if somebody brings us a task, we're not going to get stressed out about it. So that very act of noticing that your mind is wandering is part of it. And that's the good thing, is that when you sit down to meditate and suddenly your mind starts racing, you're like, oh, my mind is racing, I can't meditate. As soon as you think I can't meditate, that's you noticing that you can in fact meditate, because you didn't sit down to meditate, notice your mind is racing, and then jump up and say, you know what, I've got to start running through those 15 things. You noticed your mind is racing, and then you brought it back to your breath. You brought it back to the physical sensations, the body scan, whatever. Yeah, so you can do it. It's just you just have to realize that you are in fact doing it already a lot of the time.
Jon, from the moment that you started to where you're at now, I mean, it's been a couple of years, but let's just say from the moment you started, how long did it take for you to say, I'm in recovery, and my sponsor has always told me, try it. You have to start, if you accomplish 1 minute and then build on that, maybe 3 minutes, And that's literally how you build, I guess, the framework for building this as to a part of a habit. How long did it take you to build this into like what you do every day to perform at the level that you do?
Yeah. So initially when I was just doing those, 2 and 3 minute meditations, I was trying to just do one of those a day just to say, hey, yeah, I've done it. I've done it. And I would feel the immediate effect of that meditation, but it wore off pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
About 2 months later, I was up to about 15 minutes a day at that point, and the effects were much longer lasting, to the point where the effects from one meditation would almost touch the next meditation the next day.
Wow.
And that's when I was like, you know what, if it's almost getting there to the next day, why don't I start meditating twice a day? So I meditate 15 minutes in the morning, and I meditate sometime after lunch. And that way the effects last between meditations and eventually become long-term effects. And once I started to see that the effects were in fact long lasting and weren't just wearing off after a few hours, I was starting to be more focused, less stressed, less anxious, had conversations that I remembered, had conversations that were focused on the other person, not what it was I was going to say to their question. It was a actual involved and intentional conversation. I enjoyed my meals more because I was focusing more on my meals, what I was eating. So I was enjoying the very sensation of eating, the smells, the tastes, and everything else. So life was becoming richer and just more. I was more fulfilled, and that took about 2 months to start doing that. And once I started seeing the long-term effects, that's when I started putting it in my calendar. I mean, hold on, I don't know if you're gonna be able to see this because it's a virtual board, but let's see. Well, anyway, bottom line is I've got my calendar here.
Yep.
And on my calendar, I have meditate written down on it, because even though I fully believe in it, and I have seen the effects and I've experienced the effects, I also find that if I don't write it down, it doesn't happen. Much like writing down, if I don't write down, get to the gym, it doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. Because suddenly, you wake up, you check your computer, you check your phone, and you've got all these notifications, and before you know it, the day gets away from you, and then you're halfway through the day, then the next load of emails and notifications come in, and then the rest of your day is gone. And if you don't make the space for it, it's not going to happen. So I write that down on my calendar. I write down everything on my calendar. I live and die by it. I went on a podcast last week, and I dialed in, right on time. And they were like, "Oh, we thought you weren't going to make it." I was like, "No, I'm just not going to dial in before, because I have something up until that minute. I have something else planned."
Right. Yeah. Just like feed into that thing. Yeah. I'm the same way. The people that I work with, it's funny. They want to change certain factors of their life. And I'm a big proponent of that same thing, is writing stuff down and really living and dying by the calendar. There's some people, there's a different school of thought that, says that that's too structured, that don't leave any room for error. But I like to control my life as much as I can without coming across as this control freak. I just I need the structure. I need to alarm clock goes off at 4:45, 5 a.m. I get the alarm, like the alert saying, "Hey, it's gym time." I need that. And so I totally buy into that whole thing. I don't know if you got that partly from the military life or the training, but so I'm kind of military now.
Yeah. I think some of it comes from the military. I think I had a portion of the task-oriented side of my personality before I ever entered the military. Yeah. The military just honed it. Mm-hmm. They gave me the tools to make it even that much more a part of my life. I mean, we live and die by our calendars and task lists in the military. If we don't have military decision-making process, that's MDMP, that's a part of it. So you get very used to writing things down into a calendar, writing things down into a notebook, a task list or whatever, and then living and dying by that. Quite frankly, no pun intended there. Sometimes quite literally, you can live and die by it.
Jon, what made you apply to be a SEAL?
uh, funny enough,
You just wanted more.
no, I came into the Navy to be a SEAL.
Okay.
So I decided at a very young age that I wanted to serve in the military. And then I ran track and cross country growing up in high school. I was part of a very good team, very small team, but very good. And we were kind of a tight knit brotherhood. We did everything together, hung out through the weeks, hung out through the weekends, ran, partied as much as you
Cool.
party in high school anyway. And,
Yeah.
and just enjoyed, that brotherhood. And I wanted to be part of an elite team, tightly knit group of of uh, of those who served this country. So I started looking at special operations, the various special operations across the services. So I looked at the Green Berets in the Army and the Special Forces. I looked at MARSOC. I looked at the PJs, and I think they're all phenomenal people who serve in those capacities. But I grew up where my vacation every year we would go down to the ocean. I grew up in Louisiana, and we'd go down to like Gulfport, Mississippi, or Dauphin Island, Alabama. And once I got to the beach, you couldn't pull me out of that water. I was in
Really?
that water nonstop. Yeah, like playing
Yeah.
around in it, swimming around in it. I mean, there's not a whole lot of surf in the Gulf, but I would be in the water the whole time. And I
Mm-hmm.
realized, you know what, I want to do something in the water. And then I started researching the SEAL teams and what it is they do in the water, and specifically the SEAL delivery vehicle teams. And I wanted to be a part of that. And so I joined the Navy, went into the SEAL teams, went straight to the SEAL delivery vehicle team. That
Oh,
was my
really?
first team, and got trained to do everything in the water, and then and then served in Afghanistan and Iraq,
Wow.
and barely served on or in the water at all when it actually came down to it. Most of
Mm.
my work was on land.
Yeah, so that was my next question. How does the Navy, how does a SEAL work? What does it look like when you're in Afghanistan, in the desert?
Yeah. So let's see, my first time in Afghanistan was in 2005. And then my next time in Afghanistan, with a few stints to Iraq between the two, the next time I was in Afghanistan was 2013. And those uh, two deployments couldn't be more different. The first one was very what we call kinetic, when you go out and you do direct action missions, assaults, raids, looking for the enemy, taking down the enemy, capture kill type missions. The next one, for two reasons, it was completely different. One, that the war had changed, the country had changed, both Afghanistan and the United States, and I had changed. My rank and my position had changed. So I was the operations officer for a SEAL team that time around. So it was a lot more administrative work, kind of working behind the scenes to make missions happen. But even those missions were not as dynamic. They weren't as kinetic. They were more working with the locals in what's called village stability operations, VSOs,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
where we're training them to kind of do the fighting for them and providing them what they need so that we can eventually this is 2013 now,
Yeah.
eventually leave. And in 2013, a lot of what we were working on was trying to retrograde out of the country, so pull the United States out of the country. And here we are now in 2020, and things are what they are.
Yeah.
Still there, still there,
Unbelievable.
doing good work. But yeah, it's just Afghanistan is no man's land. It's a country that has been at war forever with different types of people, and they employ tactics that they learned eons ago, and it's going to be a tough one to ever truly win.
Mm.
So anyway, the bottom line is, in the SEAL community, what we kind of, our bread and butter, if you will, is direct action, the assaults, the raids, the kinetic operations. Special forces, the Green Berets, they're very good at that too, very good. But their bread and butter is what's called unconventional warfare, is when they train the others, the people in country, to do the fighting for them. or rather to fight for themselves. And we as SEALs are not as good at that. I'll fully admit. The special forces, the Green Berets, they get language training, they get culture training, they get a lot more of that side of things than we do. So the second time I was in Afghanistan, some of the junior guys that were working for me, they were having trouble doing the new mission, the village stability operations, compared to what we were doing in 2005. But yeah, there's special
Same
operations. We
unit,
do a
John?
whole spectrum.
Same unit in 05 as in 12 or 13?
It was with SEAL Team 10.
Wow.
But it was with different guys, because guys rotate through the teams. They rotate through the groups, the Naval Special Warfare groups, and the coasts. We have two coasts, East and West Coast. West Coast guys are San Diego with the odd number teams. East Coast guys are in Little Creek, Virginia with the even number teams. But even then, guys will bounce between coasts sometimes. Pretty rare to bounce completely from one coast to the next, but you definitely do bounce between the teams. Anyway, bottom line, SEAL Team 10, I was with SEAL Team 10 in 2005 and with SEAL Team 10 again in 2013, but it was with totally different people.
John, when you look at, we talked about this earlier, and just my fascination, with the discipline of leadership, right? You can study it, you can degree it, you can, communicate it, but then deploying it and living it and embodying that is completely different. It's almost like this, case theory, and then the realities of what the case theory is. How would you describe your leadership style?
I would like to describe my leadership style as someone who is empathetic, but can also take a stand if I need to. So strong, but understanding.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's important to, not only have empathy, but have compassion. But so, having that empathy and then wanting to take it one step further in that I want to help the other people. I want to make things better. I want to make things right. And not like touchy-feely right, but I like if it takes some hard work and it takes pushing the people that I'm leading to get the things done right, then that's the compassion that I have. So compassionate, but firm. I think. I've never really been asked to describe leadership.
That's the answer. That's John's answer. When you look at Veterans Path, all the things that you guys are doing, how long has the organization been around?
It was founded in 2008. It was actually founded under the name Honoring the Pathway of the Warrior.
Okay.
And then got rebranded to Veterans Path several years after that. But it's been around since 2008. Founded by two women, Lee Lester and Chris Fortin, who were mindfulness and sensory awareness teachers out in Berkeley, California. And they saw young men and women coming back from combat, dealing with stress injuries, dealing with trauma, dealing with moral injury. And they realized that the tools that they had, they could actually help those men and women that were coming back. So they founded the organization very small at first. It's still small. What we were doing is in-person retreats, teaching them the skills of mindfulness and meditation, and those vary between 1 day up to 5 days, and then even month-long retreats where you would come in for an initial 5 days, go home, do some stuff online, and then come back at the end after several months. And we still plan on getting back to those in-person retreats, but COVID has thrown a kind of a wrench in the works. We are doing mostly online stuff now, where I am getting on body stressors that we have as veterans. You've got even getting out of the military is a unique stressor that because you, like I kind of touched on at the beginning, you lose your sense of purpose, you lose your tribe. So we have a veteran on the other end of that online mindfulness training that we have with eMindful, teaching about how to deal with those stressors. And eventually we're going to get back to in-person retreats and do that again. But we are a nonprofit. We're not very big, and we don't have a huge operating budget. So if anyone listening is is connected to somebody with some deep pockets that wants to help out, we're always looking for donations or support. But yeah, that's what Veterans Path kind of does, and how we've adjusted to the COVID pandemic, and I think we actually flexed pretty well. We were planning on doing online stuff coming in 2021, and this just accelerated that timeline. So in a way, it's been a good thing for the organization.
John, I know that when we were speaking before we recorded, you mentioned a struggle in your life. I don't want to put you on the spot, but my testimony is very public. I struggled with, alcoholism and drug addiction for a long time, until the race. I couldn't run the race as fast as I thought I could run, and it consumed me. And that this is one fight that I'm so grateful that I lost. And it's funny, everybody's like, man, how can you talk about your story with a smile? And I say, well, because my story today is beautiful, right? The fact that I was able to overcome, and I'm lucky to be able to do that.
Sure.
But back then it was tragic, right? Chaotic. And, nobody wanted to, talk to me. And I wondered why, and today I'm just like, this is the man I was meant to be. This is the leader I was supposed to be. This is the entrepreneur that the Lord has given me the opportunity to kind of lead and kind of approach my life in this way. So can you share a little bit about yours if you can?
Yeah, sure. It for the most part started in 2005 on that first deployment that I told you about. We lost a lot of guys, and several of them with whom I was good friends. I knew their wives, I knew their kids. One of whom I was going back and forth with on different operations, and he happened to get this particular operation, and he died instead of me. So there was the sadness of losing them, the question as to why did they die and I live. Why do I deserve to live? The survivor guilt that some service members get. That was a very real thing for me. The depression, anxiety was there for a lot of the rest of my career. And I think I touched on this right before you hit record, but throughout my career, I was on different medications that were prescribed to me by the military. And I think they helped to a point, but really what they did was really just numb me to where, yes, I didn't feel the stress, I didn't feel the anxiety, I didn't feel the depression, but I also didn't feel any joy. I was just kind of numb to life. Was not who I wanted to be. And then I started on the side also drinking, and basically just trying to numb the pain in any way that I could. And that's when I started going. I had gone to counselors in the past and didn't really feel like I was getting a whole lot from it. Went back, eventually got introduced to this counselor that introduced me to mindfulness meditation. And I think the mindfulness and meditation helped. Absolutely, I do. I believe in it. I believe it changed my life. But it also allowed me to just be with my feelings, allow me to be with those things that I've been trying to numb for so long, and allow me to process them. And then once I was able to bring them to the surface and go to counseling and say, look, I'm dealing with, survivor's guilt, something that I had never even thought that I was dealing with before. I was able to process that, unpack it, and then get through it. And now I'm on the other side of it. Same with the, just post-traumatic stress, a lot of the things that come with that. I was able to unpack those and process them. So once I got the counseling led me to meditation, and then in turn, the meditation led me back to counseling, but it led me back to counseling with these things that I could process now. I think that process of processing these things is
Mm,
ultimately what changed who I am. But it was
so good.
not ever going to happen without mindfulness and meditation, the practices of those.
Awesome. Last week I had a former 2008 Carolyn Burkle. She's a 2008 silver medalist for the U.S. swim team, and I love swimming, and I've done triathlon. And if you don't know this because you see me sitting down now, but I'm vertically challenged, John. I'm tall. I'm 5'7". And so whenever I did Ironmans or whatnot, I was a lead peg in the water. But I always loved and fascinated by people that swim like you, right? Like you're a SEAL, you probably kill it in the water. And we always think like a swimmer, Olympic swimmer, a Navy SEAL commander, like they have their life in order. And the reality is that they're just like us, right?
Yeah.
They're not like us, but they're like us. They suffer from the same, anxiety and challenges that life presents. And it's yeah. And that's the reason why I love having guests like yourself and like Caroline on here, because it's the reality of what we do. And I'm not smiling because of your story, but it just shows me and all of the people that I work with that we're not alone, right?
Yeah.
This is tribal, and I think it's not that it's cool to be sober or cool to be whatever, but I just love the opportunity to share what recovery means to me today, and you can share what working on yourself, really anchoring to this mindfulness component that it's not unique to Jon. It changes people's life, and I'm glad it's changed Jon's. And then now he's using it as a platform to help other veterans. Like that's what life is about. That's almost like going on a mission and winning every day, right?
Yeah, that's right. No, definitely. A couple of things there that I want to hit on. So, um, I think in this day and age, with social media being as ubiquitous as it is, everybody's using it, everybody's on it. Very rarely do you scroll through social media and you see a picture of somebody crying. Do you see a picture of somebody, self-medicating with either prescription drugs or with alcohol? Everything on social media just about is hey, look how great my life is. And when you're on the receiving end of
Mm-hmm.
that, when you're scrolling through and you see that, you start to think, wow, my life is not as good as everyone else's. I suck. My life sucks. And it can quite literally lead to depression in and of itself. So hopefully things like this, podcasts, social media posts about
Mm-hmm.
the other side of life, the real, the raw side of life, start to get
Mm-hmm.
seen, and people can start to see, okay, you know what, that person has a human struggle. They're not this perfect avatar that's on social media. They have a human struggle, and I have a human struggle, and now I can relate to them, and maybe I can help them, or maybe they can help me, and we're all in this together, right? We're on this big thing called life together. Why not
Love it.
reach out to help one another? So I think social media is starting to change to where things like talking about your struggles are it's more acceptable and more readily digestible than, on social media. Um, and then I think also just the treatments, the things that are not drugs are getting to be better known. So like mindfulness and
Mm-hmm.
meditation. I mean, mindfulness and
Totally.
meditation, people a lot of the time they hear those terms and they start to think kind of flowery, touchy-feely stuff. Um, but the ancient warriors used to do it. The Spartans used to do it. The samurai used to do it. I mean, it is something of true warriors. It not only helps to address some of the things that it did help with me as far as anxiety, depression, stress, but it also helps to improve your performance, and then it improves your enjoyment of life as a whole. So why would you not want to practice something that gives you
Totally.
enjoyment, kind of gives you your life back? So that's just a couple of things that I wanted to hit on off of what you mentioned there.
John, I want to give the listeners and subscribers an opportunity to not only subscribe to this channel, but also to yours. Read more about what you're doing. Read more about Veterans Path. How can they find you?
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity for that plug, Tony. So Veterans Path, uh, I'll tell you, PATH is Peace, Acceptance, Transformation, and Honor. That's an acronym within our name. That's what we help veterans to find, is that sense of peace, acceptance, transformation, and honor.
Love that.
And then Veterans Path, we are on the interweb at veteranspath.org, and we're on all the different social media platforms. Just search for Veterans Path. As far as me personally, I'm on LinkedIn, Jon Macaskill, Jon Macaskill, Macaskill. Primarily I'm on LinkedIn. That's where I find that my message is best received. And I'm starting to branch out into the other social media platforms, Instagram primarily. I'm starting there now, and my handle there is Mindful Frogman. So if you're looking for me on social media,
Nice.
Jon Macaskill or Mindful Frogman.
Love it, John. I don't just say this because it's the nice thing to say. I know that our paths crossed for a reason. This is the first of many interactions that John and Tony have. I'm honored to have spent the last 45 minutes with you. I'm indebted to you for your service, for your time, and so I just want to say sincere thank you for all you do for me and for all the listeners.
Well, it's been my honor and privilege to serve both in and out of uniform. So thank you for allowing me this privilege to both serve in the military, serve after the military, and then to be here with you tonight, Tony. So thank you.
Thanks, John.